Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics pre-lockout chat ahead of round 20. I'm your host, Bails, and you can find me at Bails DT across the socials. We are recording live on Friday, the 26th of July. What is it, about about an hour and 40 minutes away from Friday Night Footy getting underway. So another round will be getting in the books. Hopefully, Tim will join us at some point. He's got work stuff that he's going to, but if he's not on tonight, he has guaranteed me he will be on Sunday. So we will have Tim back. So looking forward to chatting to Tim. Hopefully today, but if not, it'll be on Sunday. But join me. He's a very special guest. He's jumped on a couple of times this season. Obviously jumped on last week, the Friday pre-lockout chat. We got him on again. It is Fry from Sports by Fry. Fry, mate, how are you?
I'm well, Bales. I promise I'm not just back on here to talk about how good Adam Treloar is. Hopefully, a lot of coaches followed suit and brought in the great man. But yeah, ready to get stuck into some fantasy chat for sure.
Yeah, well, mate, you brought him in last week. Obviously, very, very happy. I know you were talking about that on the Twitter space last week. Just how'd you go last week? Was your score and rank and everything? How's that all going?
Yeah, not too bad. I think I was mid 2300s, about 2360 something. I ended up pulling the trigger on Adam Treloar and made him my captain. So that was really the score that helped boost me up the rankings. So sniffing the top 10K, which I'm hoping is inevitable by the end of the year. And yeah, just aiming to climb every week as it is.
Yep. Exactly right, mate. No, we've got a big week coming up, obviously round 20. But I guess that it'd be remiss of me to not start on this topic. Is the Content Creators Cup. We are moving into the finals, the first week of the finals. I did do a video on the channel earlier this week saying about the matchups and sort of showing the teams and the uniques and stuff. So if you guys do want to check that out, that is on the channel as well. So make sure you guys check that out. I preview all the games. But Fry, mate, I want to get your opinion as an someone looking in. And mate, hopefully next year you might be able to be a part of the Content Creators Cup. Have to put in the application papers for Guesty for that one there, as he is the one that does all the entrance and stuff. But as a neutral fan, who do you think wins the matchups? So I'll let you know the 4 matchups that are going on. So there's the 2 qualifying finals. You've got Mitch from the Ball Boys, who finished top. He's up against the Warn Dog, who stuck into the top 4 in the last round. So first versus fourth there. Myself, I'm up against Jepper, who finished third, so second v third. Roy, who finished 5th, just got knocked out of the top 5 because of the defeat to Warney in the final round. Is up against Nathan, the informed coach of the pod, who is 7-0 in his last 7 games. And then you got DC, who finished 6th, is up against Luke from the Ball Boys. So, mate, who do you reckon wins the 4 matchups, starting with Mitch and Warndog?
It's hard to go past Mitch. There's not many coaches out there in the Content Creators Cup or in any league really with a single-digit fantasy rank. So be hard to steer away from him, despite the recent success of the Warn Dogs. I'm sure he'll be poking and prodding Roy and telling him all about the fact that he bumped him out of the top 4. But yeah, I'll go Mitch in that one. Surely he gets it done.
Yeah, I'm not going to put my tips in because I don't want to look like I'm choosing any favourites. Because at the end of the day, I want to win it. So that's how it goes. Roy v Nathan.
Oh, I've got to go with the 4-man in Nath. He was talking about how it was a bit of a Cinderella story last week on the pod. So yeah, I'll stick with the man.
Yep. DC and Luke.
I will pick DC. Bit of a coin flip, I reckon, that one. But yeah, DC for mine.
Yeah, I think that could be a coin flip one as well. And then myself and Jepper, who you reckon?
Well, this is where I'm torn because Jepper paved the way for me to have cash cow success and kind of follow in his footsteps as someone that loves talking about rookies. So I do feel a lot of affiliation towards Jep, but being that I'm on the podcast and talking to Bails himself, I can't go against the host. So I'm hoping you get the job done, Bails, and get yourself into a home prelim final.
Thanks, mate. But you don't have to pick me just because you're on. If you think Jep's going to win, then that is completely fine. Hopefully, I'll get the upset there. But Jeppery's overseas, so I'm sort of hoping that works a bit to my advantage this week.
Oh, it might.
We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. To be honest, this is obviously a goal of mine to make it as far as possible, but also trying to get towards that top 100, 330 odd points off top of the top 100. I need a couple of big weeks. So hopefully this is one of those big weeks where I win matchup, but also catch up some points on the top 100. So We'll see how we go. We have 3 super chats in here coming in early, so thank you very much for people for sending those through. If you'd like your question guaranteed to be answered, you can send those through throughout the show, and we essentially stop almost what we're doing and answer these. So if you do want to do that, then feel free. Appreciate everyone does it. So Alex has got the first one, so thank you very much for that, mate. He says, I've got Dempsey and Dowling as my F6 loop. Would you back this in, or would you trade, or who would you trade Dempsey to? I've got the big 4 plus Dylan Moore in the forwards. Cheers, boys. So with that one, Fry, do you think that it's just worth keeping Dowling and Dempsey as the F6 loop, or do you think you go Dempsey to a Simpkin, a Brian Myers, a Ben Keys? A few people have been talking about this week. Would you go Dempsey to someone, or do you think that you just back in looping Dempsey and Dowling for the time being?
I think that F6 spot is really the toughest position to nail for every fantasy coach who's still actively trading and switched on. I think that it's fair to say that Dill Moore probably deserves the title of the 5th best forward. So
yeah,
it's very possible that Oliver Dempsey goes out and puts up the best score out of all those guys we're considering in that F6 spot. You mentioned most of them. Mason Wood is another player that's drawing some interest. So I personally think the conditions really didn't suit Dempsey last week for his crappy score. I'm tipping him to bounce back, and worst case scenario, if you've got Dowling as a potential loop, there's coaches who are probably going to be sitting in a worse position. So I'd probably stick with Dempsey and Dowling at that F6 spot, because a lot of the other guys you can target don't really give me confidence.
Yeah, I think I agree. If you've got other issues in your team and you've got things that you can do more, so as you say, the F6 spot's going to be, I think we're going to be taking 75 from there moving forward. Like the Dowling last week got the 75. He scored almost 20 points more than a plethora of options that people have got at F6. I think this is almost pretty much, I think a lot of people looking at Dowling as a guy that was coming in as a rookie, make some cash, you trade him out. But I think he's now a guy we're going to keep for the rest of the season, unless someone's got nothing to do, and then they've got money they can put on top of Dempsey and go get a Simpkin or a Myers and have that instead as the F7 loop. But I just think he's going to be a guy we're going to be looping there for pretty much the remainder of the season to see how it goes. Like I've got Toby Green, for example. He got a 58 last week, but I'm almost in no rush to trade him because I've got him and Dowling I can loop between, and it's not like I'm missing out on anyone that's going averaging 80, 90 plus, and I'm getting a big points game, whereas I could be trading out like I've flagged next week I might even move a Dacos on who might get tagged for a guy that I'm hoping goes 110, 120 for the rest of the year. So I think that there's stuff like that you can do, whereas the F6 spot is almost like, well, the guy you trade out could go 100 and the guy you bring can get a 60. So it's just not a great spot to be this year, unfortunately.
On that point, I've got Brian Myers and Jai Simpkin sitting as my F5 and 6, and I grabbed Brian the week of the Hawks matchup. So he had a 60, then he came out with a 115, so I was feeling chuffed, and then dropped the 50. So the scoring is going to be very inconsistent from that bunch. So I'd almost, for that reason, not make it a priority. Like you said, I'm sure that there's other issues for coaches to address. And if you've got a Dacos type, I'm in the same boat, considering a potential trade out next week for him. So, I wouldn't go rushing to move on a player. Like you said, you got a Toby Green. There'd be coaches who have someone like Myers, Simpkin, unless it's a Tom Powell or Zach Fisher, you can kind of just roll the dice with whoever you've got sitting there.
Yeah, exactly. We've got another super chat from Jason Whiteley. Thank you very much for that, mate. Would try and loop Butters for Humphries if he gets tagged and scores bad. Would you be doing that? Would you be looping Butters tonight? And if you get, and just sort of getting the free hit of having a look at him and then playing Humphries, or were you backing Butters in tonight?
I'd probably back Butters in, but if you've got the opportunity to loop him, you may as well, right? You're not going to lose anything. Yeah. If he goes great, fantastic. If he comes out and he really does get tagged, he's a player that does love to spend big stints of time on the bench as well. Obviously, he was subbed out a couple of weeks ago against the Doggies too. So if it's
then if he gets tagged and when he's on the ground,
team, yeah, exactly. So he's capable of getting 140, but he's also capable of getting a high 60. So to play it safe, I think if you've got the opportunity to loop him, you may as well, right? You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly right. I agree. I think it's almost locked on. He gets the tag from Chincola tonight. It worked really well in the past game. I know Rosie wasn't playing, but Butters is the guy that teams do go for because he's more susceptible. I think Rosie's a bit more versatile. Is more of a damaging player for in the forward line, I think, even though Butters obviously very, very good. I just think that Chincola will go to him. So, yep, that would be. And then Humphries as well. What would be the line actually just for Jason as well? I guess that probably, what would be the line you'd take Butters? Is it 80 plus? Is that where you'd probably be taking Butters? Or you wanting maybe more 90 plus. If he only gets an 80, you just put Humphries on and chance your arm.
I think if the score starts with an 8, that's probably, where I would sit the line. Lawson Humphries down in Tasmania. Obviously, the conditions didn't suit him either. A player that loves get +6s and a lot of marks. It wasn't friendly last week. So I still expect Humphries to go back to 70 plus, but the difference between Zach Butters and Lawson Humphries from a fantasy pedigree standpoint is quite significant. So I would say I'd back Butters in if he didn't have the opportunity to loop. So for that reason, Humphries could come out and get a 50. It's not impossible. So I'd take an 80 and feel pretty confident with that.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. Power Prawns as well has got another one here. So thank you very much for that, mate. He said, come on the pair, as if I would ever drop my man Butters. You're gone, Walshy, Treloar or Brayshaw, lads. Well, firstly, Power Prawn start. I'd obviously, you know what I'm going to say with Butters or Walsh. I'd be trading Butters out, definitely. Would you be trading out Butters over Walsh, firstly, Fry?
It's an interesting one because I currently have both of them in my side, and the only top line A-grade fantasy player that I'm still missing at the moment is Goulden, and it will probably be one of those guys that I chop for Errol. I agree with you. I think Zach Butters' inconsistency probably leans me towards trading him over Walshy, but he hasn't exactly been firing recently, has good old Sammy Walsh. So it's a tricky question, but I think I agree with you. I think you trade Butters first.
Yeah, and we went 133 against Port earlier this year at Adelaide Oval. This is back at Marvel. I know he hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks, but at the end of the day, I think Sam Walsh is Sam Walsh. I think he's got a really good run for the final 4 weeks as well. I was even looking at bringing him in next week, but people have been saying he's got, I don't know if he's got a bit of a back niggle or something, but obviously that could be the difference. Maybe you want to get rid of the guy that's got with a niggle, but I'd rather trade Butters with the tag, the next 2 weeks of tags coming up. You can always loot Butters this week. If you've got a Humphries or someone, you can always, as we said before with Jason, do that bit of a loop there. But Treloar or Brayshaw, where would you be going there? Obviously, Brayshaw's got the Eagles this week, and then he's got Geelong and Essendon, so a pretty good 3-week stretch. But Treloar's got Sydney this week. Then he's got a 3-week stretch next week that starts well, and you brought Treloar in last week. So where would you be leaning with this question?
It's a bloody tough one. I think it's not just because I'm a Fremantle fan, for the record, but I think Brayshaw has really found his mojo over the last month or so of footy. He and Caleb Sarong are complementing each other quite well, and you can see that Caleb Sarong's scores haven't been as consistent, and Brayshaw has been bouncing between a 120 and then an 80 or something. But I do feel that Adam Treloar has arguably the highest fantasy floor in the whole game, so there's a lot of coaches jumping on him this week for good reason. They're both ripper picks, but I think you just got to side with Adzi Treloar.
Yeah. I think I'll lean.
I talked myself in circles there, to be honest. But I do think, like I said, Adam Treloar he's had this massive ceiling score, but it's a tough one. It's a really tough one.
I lean just to Brayshaw just because of the fact that Sydney. We've seen people trade into players playing Sydney even outside the SCG this year. It hasn't gone well. Obviously, namely Dunkley last week with a 61, which was his lowest score by nearly 20 points. So I just think Brayshaw, that West Coast matchup, no tag. He's been tagged in the past against West Coast, so this is where I wouldn't look at past performance against West Coast. I'd be looking at what he's going to do, and 3 of his last 5 have been over 120, and the other 2 were against Sydney. So obviously another one there, and then when he in that Hawthorn game where it was everyone scored poorly. So I like Brayshaw this week, and I would even look at something like a day cost control next week, Power Prawn stuff, if there's a way you can do that. So and we got one. We got one last super chat here as well from Maltese, then we'll get stuck into some captain talk. 2 to trade out of these: Butters, Young, Ryan, and Cripps. So who are you trading between out of those 4? Or rank them for me, for obviously 2 of them will go, but how would you rank the 4 in terms of a trade out?
Butters, Ryan, Young, and Cripps. I think Cripps is probably the last one I'd ditch, mainly because of the form he's been in, and I think I'm tipping Port Adelaide tonight, but I do expect over the last 5 weeks of the season, Carlton to really find their straps and finish with a bang. So I do side with keeping Cripps out of that group. The Ryan Young one is a really difficult argument. I think Hayden Young's proven that he is so damaging forward of centre for the Dockers, and he's been able to help them put up some big scores. But as a result, he's not really dominating from a fantasy standpoint. So I'd probably default to keeping if you could, I'd keep Butters and Cripper, and then probably after that flick out the likes of Ryan and Young. But if you're stuck in a spot where you have to pick one of the defenders and one of the midfielders, I'd probably get Hayden Young out first, and then keep Butters and Legrine.
Yeah, I don't mind it because Ryan still has. I know he hasn't shown it, but he still does have the ability to hit a ceiling score. And I don't know about you, Fry, but I was watching that game against was it Melbourne last week?
Yep.
Yeah, Melbourne. Yeah, feels like a lifetime ago now that those games were on last week. It's
it
too
does,
long.
Honestly.
Thursday night football. We need it back, and I hope they do it next year. But with that game, there was like 3 minutes to go. Freo up by at least 30, 40 points, and they still wanted to kick goals. And I'm just like, come on, get some chip for Ryan at the end. Like I wanted a little bit of just like no injuries, just chip it around, get some points and whatever. But they kept going for it. So at the end of the day, what can you do? I guess 85 is still not awful. He looked better in the second half. He got more of it. Just the first half, he didn't get much of it. So, but we'll see how he goes. But let's get into some captains chat. Obviously, I did my top captains video yesterday. So if you want to check the more in-depth video, make sure you do check that out. But in terms of my top 5 this week, I have got Errol Goulden at number 1. At the SCG, 3 of his last 4 have been really good there, including 2 150s against Geelong and was it North Melbourne, I believe, were the 2 games he went over 150. I'm just pulling it up here. Yeah, so 151 against North, 151 against North Melbourne, 82 against Freo, 151 against Geelong, and then 116 against Carlton. So 3 of his last 4 have been over 115 with 2 massive ones there. Dogs are giving up some decent scores over the last few weeks. They've only given up 1 big score each of the last couple of weeks. Like last week, you had where's it gone? Geelong, Stewart went obviously big with a 125. Obviously, it was a bit of a sort of really wet game there. The week before that for Carlton, Cripps went 127. And then the week before that, obviously, the Port duo in Rosie and Butters went 147, 136. I feel like if anyone's going to get a ceiling score, it's going to be Errol Goulden. At number 2, I've got Tristan Cherry. No Stanley in at the moment. He apparently has flown over. So if Stanley was a late in somehow, which we know Geelong definitely capable of doing that, he would slide probably outside the top 5 for me, just because I don't think he's got the ceiling. Whereas this week, if he's up against DeConing and Blitzarves, I think he'll put up his biggest score for the season and go 130 plus. So I've got him as my number 2 option. Number 3, I've got Zach Merritt against St Kilda. I just think no Windhager, no Ross. St Kilda give up plenty of marks still. And I feel like when Zach Merritt's not tagged, he goes over 100. And I feel like he's due a big ceiling score. I know he hasn't put one up since I think ran 3 against Port or ran 4 against Port when he got like a 135. I just think Essendon last week, tough loss. Captain of the football club, they need to win this game to stay inside the top 8, but keep in touch with the potential top 4 spot. So for me, I think Merritt will stand up and I think he will go well. So he's my number 3. Number 4, I've got Harry Sheasel against Geelong. He's got a 159 against him early in the year. There's a chance he does play in defence as well with Fisher and McKercher out. I have thought long and hard about potentially putting him above Merritt, and I still may do that. But at the moment, as it sits, I've currently got Merritt above Sheasel, but I think a lot of people probably prefer Sheasel. And then at number 5, I've got Nick Dacos. And the reason he's a bit lower in the 5, I know it's got Richmond, but Collingwood are just not looking great at the moment. And he hasn't shown the ceiling this year as what he did last year. Like, he's only got the 2 130s this year, and that was in a 3-week stretch. He got another 120 in that same 4-week stretch where he got those 2 130s, and then he got a 120 start of the year. Every other score's been under 120. So I just don't know if he's got the ceiling at the moment. But if he's going to hit one, it's going to be against Richmond there. And then of my the next 5, 6 through 10, I've got Josh Dunkley at number 6. I think he'll bounce back pretty well against Gold Coast in a decent matchup there. Coming in at number 7, I have got... Now I've bloody lost who I had at 7. Tom Green at number 7 against Melbourne. I like the matchup. I think he'll dominate Melbourne's midfield, so I've got him at 7. Then I've got Caleb Sarong at 8 and Brayshaw at 9, obviously in that West Coast matchup for both those guys. And then at number 10, I have got... Ryan Marshall sneaking in at number 10. He's got the ceiling. I know it's a tough matchup against the Bombers, but he's the number 1 scoring player this season in fantasy, so I think he'll go quite well. So, Fry, finally after those top 10 for me, where are you looking at going with your VC and captain this week?
I think I'll have the V on Harry Sheasel against the Cats, mainly because he plays a bit earlier and want to lock in that vice. I don't feel super confident. In targeting one of those guys tonight. So Sheasel for me, and then the captain's a little bit up in the air. One bloke that you didn't mention that I've seen get a lot of love is Dane Zorko. He's come into consideration for me.
He
but
was
I feel
one that, yeah, I could have put in easily. He probably could have even been 10th ahead of Marshall, to be fair.
I mean, when you're picking 10 guys, you could
There
make
are a lot
the
of decent
argument
options this
after
week.
the top couple. Yeah, there really are. And I think a lot of coaches are obviously going to be chasing that huge monster ceiling. So we know Zorko's capable of reaching that. So he's someone that's come into my thinking. But we pumped up Zach Merritt last week and we were saying he's due for a big fantasy score. 109 is a score that you look at and you have to consider as a vice captain. But he was being followed by Hugh Bond for a chunk of that game. And I want to say he scored something like 18, or he was in the teens late into the first quarter. So he somewhat saved his score and salvaged it. So we know that he's capable of scoring 30 every quarter. He's a fantasy gun. So I lean towards picking him or maybe a Josh Dunkley.
So he had 40 points in the third quarter and then the 20 points in the last quarter. But obviously, the Crows sort of got the better of the Bombers in that last quarter. So, and it was even the second quarter, he had 31 points. So he had 71 points in the second and third quarters. So just, he hasn't quite put a four-quarter performance together. So, and fair enough, it's been funny that his scores haven't been ceiling wise when Parrish hasn't been the team. When Parrish has been the team, that's more when he's got these one. Well, he got the 130 when Parrish was in the team. He also got a couple of 120s early in the year as well when Parrish in. So it'd be interesting to see if that does correlate a bit. Actually, he did. Yep, it'd be interesting to see if it correlates to some high scores. But I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, and as we've spoken about, the type of him, Josh Dunkley, Tom Green, a lot of these guys are capable of hitting 120, the Fremantle boys, without too much sweat. But at this time of year, everyone really wants to have a captain that hits that 130, 140 mark. So for that same reason, I might get ballsy and try and chase the ceiling of a Dane Zorko type. But I'm really hoping that Harry Sheasel does that on Saturday morning and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of me, I'm tossing up probably there's 4 VC options. I know that I've got my list, but I'm in a little bit of a different spot where I'm trying to chase points, and I'm tossing up Sheasel VC, Merritt VC, obviously, Marshall, who's got the ceiling, and then Dunkley. So Dunkley and Marshall are the guys that have got the massive ceiling that to potentially VC them there. And I'm going Errol Goulding captain on the Sunday. I'm just sort of torn whether I go Sheasel on debut, who I'm bringing in this week, or if I go one of those other 3. I've currently still got Merritt just because that's sort of almost what my gut's been telling me most of the week. And this year I have said that when my gut's saying something, I've backed it in and it's worked. So whether I back it in and I guess because Merritt's not going to be a very popular VC, I don't think. I think he'll be quite a unique one. And if he pops a big score, that could be big for me. Whereas if Sheasel goes big, I'm going to own him. Everyone's got him anyway. And I've got Goulden captain on the Sunday anyway. So I feel like I'll still get a solid enough score from him if Merritt doesn't get it done. So I'm thinking that I'll because then again, Sheasel in this role hasn't gone over 135. I know 134 is an amazing score. And I'm bringing him in hoping he goes well. But I'm sort of trying to chase as many points as possible. So I'm hoping that maybe Merritt can go well and then into Goulden. But who knows?
It feels like the popular play this week is to have the V on Harry Sheasel and then to roll that into Errol Goulding or your Cherry as well. Yeah, these rucks are, probably not getting enough love. I think you've talked about why Cherry might be able to have his best score of the season. He has had a lot of 120s and a lot of fantastic scores throughout the year. But
he's had like really, 2 129s, right on the borderline.
Hasn't had that monster. So if, as you said, the avid listeners of the podcast are switched on and check to see if Geelong sticks to form and makes a late change, then you might want to consider someone else. But I love the idea of rolling with a Tristan Cherry as a V or into someone like Rowan Marshall as well, who we know when he's on, he can score 160, 170. So I think, if you're in a position like myself, I kind of just want to bank a good score. But if you really want to chase that ceiling, then there's a lot of options out there with your V. So I'd probably steer away from a Sheasel and a Goulden if you try and want to buck the trend of what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, and that's part of what I'm thinking in my own boat as well, trying to chase the points. I feel like I can't really go Sheasel because if he gets a 110, 120, and a lot of people take it, there's a chance potentially for me where I could even go someone else and then get a 140, hopefully, and then gain some points. But obviously, that's just talking hypotheticals. But I'm just even looking at St Kilda's team here. I don't know exactly who they would send to Merritt to tag him because there's no Winhagen, no Ross. So that's why I'm sort of keen on a Merritt this week. I feel like he's due a big score. So, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I will do a couple more questions because I know, Fry, you've got how long have you got? You got to head off shortly?
Yeah, give me 5 minutes. Yeah, I can give you 5.
Yep, yeah, cool. And I'll be going probably live for about another 20 or so just because I've got a family birthday tonight. So I'll be out tonight. So no watch along for us tonight. Be back tomorrow night for one of the games, either the Derby or the Melbourne Giants game, whichever game people want to see more of. Then we'll do that watch along there. So we've got Eric's got the first question, who I know is inside. I still believe he's inside the top 15, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he's 11th, so just outside top 10, mate. Hey guys, thoughts on trading Dacos back in after trading last week? Also, thoughts on trading Rosie? And finally, do you think Whitfield costs any attention this week? Thanks for your help. So there's 3 questions there. I've already said I think Neil Bullen could go to Whitfield this week potentially. I still think Whitfield will go okay. I don't think it's a trade out or anything like that. I just think that he might not put up a 120, 130 score this week if he cops attention. If he doesn't, obviously he could go massive because Melbourne's a great matchup. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on getting Dacos back in this week after trading last week? I guess it would be ideally a 1-week play because you probably want to trade him back out again next week. So could you trade him out, get him back this week, and then trade him out again next week? Could you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're at the pointy end of the rankings and you're really trying to, zig while everyone else is zagging, there'll be a lot of coaches who maybe traded Dacos out last week and are thinking, like you said, there's not a lot of promise in his fantasy fixture to end of the season. But he should go well this week against the Tigers. If there's nothing else pressing to do, I think, bringing him back in for this 1-week play is a smart move.
Yeah, I agree. And finally, thoughts on trading Rosie?
I probably feel safer keeping Rosie over
I agree.
Butters. I started with both of them this year, and obviously when Connor went down, I had to pivot, and I think I kept him for a week, hoping that it would be a 1-week hammy issue, and then he had plenty of other problems over the middle portion of the season. But I feel a bit safer keeping Connor Rosie over Butters. I know he didn't mention Butters in this, but yeah, I'd keep Connor Rosie, to be honest.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have Butters. Looking at his midfield, it looks pretty bloody good. There's not really
reel
anyone...
it off to me. What's his midfield like?
So he's got Bont, Merritt, Sarong, Rosie, Green, Goulden, Brayshaw, Dunkley.
Yeah, there's not many players that are missing from that group that you'd want to trade to. Maybe we've talked about Treloar. Maybe you want to go for a pod and get real.
Maybe not this week. Being at the top, maybe not this week with the Sydney matchup. But I agree. Maybe next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely a play. I don't mind Taranto still. I know he's come back from concussion, so he probably can't do it being at the pointy end. But Collingwood this week, and he's got a good run to end the year. And I like Noah Anderson next week as well. So maybe if you're going to get rid of Rosie, maybe it's next week. Maybe you go next week him to a pod if you want to trade him out. But yeah, I don't mind keeping him this week, even in a tough matchup. McTurtle says, hey fellas, can you tick off McKercher to Tom Green and Dawson to Curnow?
Oh, Curnow. I actually
essentially you're going Dawson to Green and McKercher to Curnow.
Yeah, I flagged Charlie Curnow with a couple of crew that I was chatting to about fantasy as a potential. I think it was Tex Walker last year. It was one of those key forwards, just kicked a massive bag, and as a result had a 140 or 150, and no one had them in their team. So yeah, I flagged before that I like Paddy Cripps because of the potential run that they have to close the season. If you ask a lot of the common content creators out there, it seems like everyone has a good run and they're great plays. But I do think that if you want to get unique, we've talked about how crap that F6 spot is. Going Charlie Curnow could really be a dice roll that works. So I don't have any of his numbers in front of me, and I know that he's obviously a goal-kicking threat. So if he kicks a bag, that could be quite elite. So yeah, it's a move that a lot of coaches wouldn't consider and wouldn't be brave enough to pull off, but I kind of like it.
That's funny enough, something I'm looking at doing next week as a bit of a play. So like I'm just looking here. So he's got his last 5 scores: 92, 41, 41, 94, and 101. And he's got Port tonight, which is obviously a tricky matchup. Then he goes into Collingwood, Hawthorn, West Coast, St Kilda to finish the year. So
Ooh.
at least 3. I think Hawthorn could be the one that could be a bit tricky, but then again, they've really only got Sam Frost as their only sort of real key tool. And then outside that, Sicily's injured. So I'm actually looking potentially even next week, if everything goes to plan, I want to go. I love Billy Dowling, but I might even go Dowling to Kerno next week, and then I'll be going a Dacos to like a Noah Anderson next week. Like do some real pod plays to try and be those 2 unique plays to try and catch up some ground. So that's something I'm looking at doing potentially, but we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe I've got to trade a Ryan or a Young this week instead. So we'll see how that goes. Detached edits, Butters to Sarong or Brayshaw? Here we go. Good question for you, Fry.
Ooh. I think I would side with Brayshaw, partially because he's a bit more unique than Sarong, and it seems like Caleb Sarong's the one who's kind of doing a lot of the grunt work inside. Andy Brayshaw's similar to Hayden Young, really being that damaging running type midfielder. They're both elite picks, but I think I'd side with Brayshaw.
Yeah, I'd Sarong as my 4th traded target this week on the video I did on Instagram and all the other socials in yesterday. But thinking about it a bit more, you probably want Brayshaw more because he's got the ceiling that he can hit more regularly. Like I know Sarong hit it last week, but he's only hit, I think, he's only hit 2 scores since round 3 that have been over 107, whereas Brayshaw's done 3 of those in the last 5 weeks. So
exactly.
And those 2 low scores were because of those matchups. So yeah, I feel like that Brayshaw is probably the play you want to go for there. So we'll go 2 more quick questions for, and then we'll let Fry go. So Simon Sachs has got this one. So he says, boys, which option for Butters and Rivers? So he's trading those 2 out. So he's going Brayshaw and Ridley, Sheezel and Ridley, or Stewart and Sinclair.
Was the middle one Sheezel and Ridley?
Yeah.
I think I like that one, to be honest. The Riddler's someone that I pointed out could be a nice pod in defence. Yeah, going up against the Saints. He had the monster 132 off the top of my head when his first game back, and then he's only had 1 score since then that's really been a crap one. But there's not a lot of coaches that are trusting someone like a Jordan Ridley, and I think out of the players that we all just talked about, Harry Sheezel's probably the one that you want to have the most. So for that reason, I probably default a little bit to grabbing Sheezel and then seeing who the best bloke you can get is. Sinclair and Stewart's a nice combo as well, for what it's worth. But I think you've got to have the Shees.
Yeah, I was going to say Stewart and Sinclair would be the combo I think I'd want most long term, but I feel like Sheezel's the guy, as you say, out of all of those players that I think you need, especially if you don't have him next week, it could be a bit of trouble because he's got Richmond at Marvel, and I feel like that could be a massive score for him. That could be almost his not season high because he got 159 against Geelong, so it might go close. But if he's going to go 140 plus in this forward mid row, it could be next week. So Ridley against the Saints this week, then Freo next week. I don't mind that as a couple of 2-week play, and you can always go. Worst case, you can go Ridley to Stewart or Sinclair next week. So I'd rather just lock in the Shees.
Yeah.
Because if you get Carnage next week and you can't get Sheezel, then I think you're in trouble. So I'd be doing that. And the final question we will go to, Dan Mashman just said Butters to Brayshaw or Sheezel. I'm assuming you're Sheezel out of those 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And the final one we'll go here is from Blaze AU. Said, hey, Bails, would you be, hey, guys, would you be Whitfield and a rookie or go Stewart and trade Wood to Moore? So you're doing a rookie downgrade and getting Whitfield, or are you getting Stewart and then going Wood to Moore? I don't think you're going Wood to Moore, are you? You're probably doing the rookie downgrade, I imagine.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I talked about how Dillmore's probably the 5th best forward, but it's not exactly a must-have. You know, he had nearly 30 touches last week and failed to crack 100. So I still feel like Mason Wood is capable of putting up a decent score against the Bombers. And if you've already got him in your team, then he's a great unique as well. So comes out and gets you a 90, you won't be complaining. It comes out and gets you a 60 or a 50. It's, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. I'd rather go the first one and get the dud rookie.
Yeah, well, Tony, because Tony as forward also said, would you bring in Whitfield or Stewart? Would you still be going, Whitfield over Stewart if you had the pick between the 2?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Stewart's form has been incredible, and it hurts watching him score so well as a non-owner. But he's bound to come back to earth at some point, right? And it might not be...
Whitfield's D1, isn't he? He will D1 or D2, I think.
And you could argue he's a top 4 must have, 3 must have player, regardless of position. So yeah, I think you grab Whitfield while you can.
Yeah, I agree. Beautiful. Well, Fry, thank you very much for jumping on, mate. I know you got to head off. Before you do, mate, where can the people find you, the Sports by Fry pod, and then also the Patreon?
Yeah, cheers, mate. Sports by Fry, FRY, on all your preferred form of social media. I've been doing a lot of the rookie stuff mainly on my Patreon page, but at the final month of the season, obviously rookies aren't crucial. There's pieces up there on loophole candidates and other bits and pieces that coaches might covet, but I'm going to really dive into the fixture and try and identify some pods and some uniques that coaches can target to help them out in the fantasy finals.
Beautiful. No, make sure you get around it. Fry's a good bloke. So firstly, you should just do it because of that, but then also great content. So make sure you get around him as well. And then finally, as well, just for that people missed it, trades and captain, vice captain for the week.
I will vice captain Sheasel, and then the coin flip worked for me last week, going Treloar over Tim English. So I'll probably do the same thing and flip a coin between Merritt. No, I'll go between Dunkley and Zorko. Big Brisbane fan over here. So my other trade that I'm doing, I'll probably get the Zach Taylor. I talked about doing it last week, but didn't want to lock myself in on Friday night. So I went for Joe Fonte in the back line in case McKercher didn't play. I had a green dot there, which didn't matter in the end. But so I'll grab Zach Taylor to rectify that this round. And then I'm going to go Colby McKercher to Nick Newman, mainly because he's a bit of a pod. I think Port Adelaide gives a lot up to players who are, call it, designated kickers coming out of defence. So I'm hoping Newman's had a couple of 90s and crappy scores in a row on the back of a 140 about a month ago. So fingers crossed when a lot of people are listening to this, Nick Newman's already on 120.
Yeah, exactly right. Beautiful. No, thanks, mate. Appreciate you jumping on, and yeah, I'm sure we'll chat to you again soon.
Yeah, will do. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah. Thanks, Fry. Beautiful. All right, I'll get through questions for the next 10 minutes or so. Then I'll have to head off. I'm assuming Tim can't jump on tonight, but if he does, he'll obviously jump on as soon as he can. So let's get into a heap of questions. I'll get to as many as possible because I know we've got a fair few questions here. So let's get into a heap of them. So, Figsy Figurano, Gorn a good option over Cherry as a pod, or does Gorn have a better ceiling? I'd be going Cherry this week. I think that I know that Gorn's a pod, but I couldn't trade into him first game back from injury. So for me, it's got to be Cherry against the Geelong matchup. I guess if Stanley came in, you could think about doing it if you need to chase points up. But I think if he's not, then yeah, you're going to want to bring him in. Power Prawns. So I heard on SEN that Gorn looked sore at the test. Last time that happened, he scored 130 plus for what it's worth. Yeah, that's a good point. So I have to see. Buki Boonda says Dawson and Fisher to Goulden and Goulden or Dunkley and Gorn or Marshall or Sweet. Marshall or Stewart, sorry. Got Jackson R2, but Kirch red dot. So hopefully Luke Evans, so I don't have to get Stewart. Yeah, I'd probably say the guys I'd want Marshall, just because I would prefer to get a move Jackson out of the R2 spot, get Marshall, and then you can maybe loop Jackson and a forward. In terms of the other guys, I'd just go get Goulden. You need Goulden. So I'd go get him, and you can get Dunkley potentially next week. I'd be doing that. Tony Ford, is it worth trading Manor on the bench to get Whitfield for Dawson, or keep Manor and trade Shellmaker on the bench, but it means I can only get Stewart or Sinclair for Dawson? Ooh, I know Whitfield's you need him, but I feel like Manor you'd prefer to keep at F7 or F6 and loop between a couple of guys. So I'd prefer to keep Manor and go Shellmaker down because he's not playing, and I'll just go get Tom Stewart. I reckon, Tony. That's what I'd be doing there. Josh, best trade in Brayshaw, Steele, or Anderson? This week, I think Brayshaw will score the most out of all of them. I think Steele is probably the best play from this week onwards. And then Anderson's the best play from next week. So it's a tough one to answer, Josh, which is what I like this question. So it depends what you're after, right? I think Anderson could be the best play from next week onwards. But I feel like Brayshaw's the best play for the next 3 weeks. So if you want points now and you can trade Brayshaw to Anderson a couple weeks, I'd go Brayshaw this week, then to Anderson. But I don't mind Steele as just a solid play. So yeah, I don't mind it. I'd be going Brayshaw just though. It's a tough one. I like that question. It was a tough one to answer. Trade out Kirch or Matt Kenny, says Blake Atkinson. It's got to be Kirch. He's out this week and I'm assuming it's for the foot injury again. He's sort of, obviously they're managing him quite carefully throughout the rest of the year. So who knows if he is a sub coming back or if he misses another game. At least Matt Kenny can loop him tonight, right? F6, you can loop him at F7. If he scores bad, hopefully you've got a Manor or a Dowling or something like that you can play instead and loop between the two guys. And even if he is your F6, you're not losing that many points anyway. So I would just be happy leaving him there. In terms of the subs tonight, well, there is actually a late change. So Harry Mackay is actually a late out tonight. So that could affect a few draft coaches out there. Lewis Young is into the team. And then you've got Jack Carroll and Quinton Narkle are the subs. So, yeah, if anyone's got a Harry Mackay as a bit of an F6 pod, he's got to be moved out or at least to your bench. Caleb Fife, would you go Newman to Dunkley or Rosie to Brayshaw? Oh, geez, I don't know if I'd... Newman could go well this week, as Fry said, because Port have actually been okay for designated kickers. And then Rosie to Brayshaw. I don't mind the Rosie to Brayshaw play, but I feel like Dunkley could be the guy out of these four that could put up the biggest score. But then again, Brayshaw could as well. That's a really tough one to answer. It probably comes down to who would you want? Do you want Rosie and Dunkley or Newman and Brayshaw? And I think I'd rather Rosie and Dunkley. So I'd go Newman to Dunkley this week. But I would probably like to go get Newman next week because he's got a good run. He's got Collingwood next week. So IT says, Zach, no ceiling merit. We know he does have the ceiling. He just hasn't hit it this year. As I said, I think he could do it this week. So who knows? Tom Kennedy, who goes first out of Anderson and Rosie to get in Brayshaw? Well, I think it's got to be Rosie just because Anderson from next week onwards could be a really, really good player. He's got 4 great matchups to finish the year. So, and he plays at People First Day. If he doesn't get any attention this week, he could still go solid enough. Rosie could get any attention potentially tonight or tomorrow. Who knows what Carlton do if they run a multi-tag or they tag Rosie over Butters if they did do that. I'd prefer keep Anderson and go Rosie to Brayshaw if that's what you're looking for. But then again, I'm not huge to trade up Rosie just yet. But if you want a pod play, that could be it. Connor Johns, Butters to Dunkley or English to Roma? Butters to Dunkley for me. Butters, if he gets a tag, could put up a bad score. Dunkley could up big score. I think he will. And then English has still been solid. I know he's got a couple of tough matchups, but we've seen in the past he can still score well even in a tough matchup. So I'd be going and keeping him. I support the sausage. Would you trade Butters or Stewie? Butters to Stewie or not worth it? I'd be happy to trade Butters to Stewart. Yep, I think it's worth it. Stewart obviously looking really good in this mid-roll. I think you'd be doing that. Young or English out says detach edits. Or if you had to trade one out this week, it's probably English because you can probably go to a Marshall or a Cherry because you haven't got one of those two clearly. So, yeah, I'd be going English to one of those two and then keeping Young for the West Coast matchup. Would you trade in Sarung or Brayshaw or just go for the pods and attach ads? So I'd probably go Brayshaw for the ceiling, but I did say Sarung was my 4th train type for the week. But yeah, if you go Brayshaw, he's got the ceiling. He's hit 3 120s in his last 5 games. So if you want the pod, it is Brayshaw. Eliza, I hope I've said that. I apologize, I haven't got it right. Walsh or Laird to Green, or rookie downgrade to save cash for next week. I'd trade his Butters to Sheasel. Laird's got Hawthorn, which is tough inside mids, but I feel like with no Dawson, Laird will go well this week. So I'd keep Laird. You could go Walsh to Green this week. I'd be happy to do that. And you can always see Walsh this week. If he looks better, then you can always bring him in next week for the Collingwood matchup. It just depends what, with the cash save for next week, what you can do or what you're planning to do. Like, have you got any bad, like any sort of mid prices or players you're not happy with on field still? Have you got premiums and is that cash going to help you do 2 moves next week? That would depend. If that cash is really going to help you do the trades you want to do next week, I'd be happy to keep Walsh for the week and just save cash. But if not, I'd be happy to just do Walsh to Green there. Sinclair or Steele this week, says Corey. I think I'll still go Steele. Just because I think he scores more for the rest of the year. But I don't mind Sinclair as well. I just feel like Essendon could put someone on him this week if they want to do that. But yeah, I'd go Steele this week, but I like Sinclair. Jason, thoughts on Brayshaw's history versus West Coast? High score 103 in 11 games and average of 79. Yeah, so I wouldn't look at his past games against West Coast. They've normally tagged him in those games, whereas Sarong, for one, is the number one tag guy there, and Young is even probably past Brayshaw. But with Schofield there, interim coaches don't tag, or they don't typically tag. So I don't see a tag going to Brayshaw. I think he goes well. We've seen some big scores against West Coast lately, so I'd be happy to get him in if you're keen on him. Brad McLeod, thoughts on LDU or McCluggage? McCluggage got 2 good games in a row. I just I can't trust a guy like McCluggage bringing him in, so I'd be going for LDU. He's got a really good run for the rest of the year, so I'd be bringing him in out of the 2. Who's a bigger target, Sheasel or Green? Sheasel for me. I love Tom Green this way. I think he go well. But, I think Sheasel's the guy you need. You just need Sheasel in the team. I'm bringing him in this week, so I think you need him. Power Prawns, so I like the vid, guys. Yeah, thanks, Power Prawns. I appreciate that, mate. But, yeah, make sure you guys smash a like on the video. We much appreciate it. If we can get 100 likes on the video, that'd be fantastic. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We passed 2,600 the other day, so thank you for the continued support. We're sort of closing in on 2,700 now. So I think we're 93 now, Wade. We had a fair few people subscribe the last few days. So, if you can subscribe and help us hit 2.7K for the end of the season, that'd be fantastic. And obviously our goal is 3K. So if you can help us get there, that'd be fantastic. I'll go a few more questions here, then I'll have to head off. Figsy Figure Man, hey, Bails, is Nate Tagorn good because the ceiling and run home and Dawson Stewart? Yeah, I don't mind it. It's a bit of a pod play getting gone. I'd just be wary, though. He's come back from injury. I still would prefer a Cherry or a Marshall this week. But if you're really looking for a pod, it could be an option. Bookie Boonda, unfortunately, said a Dunkley and Marshall or Goulden and Gawn. Okay, well, that's a tough one. Maybe go Gawn and Gawn because Gawn's got the ceiling still. And I don't know. That's a really hard one because I think Dunkley could go well this week and even next. Actually, no. Go Dunkley and Marshall because I feel, well, it actually depends what you want. If you want the pod play, it's Goulden and Gawn because I feel like Gawn's going to be the real pod. No, Goulden's owned by everyone, but Gawn's more of the pod out of all 4 of the players. Dunkley and Marshall's probably the safest play just because Dunkley's still safe and solid. Marshall is probably the number 1 or 2 ruck. So now, if you've got a way to get Goulden next week or the week after, I'd go Dunkley and Marshall. But that is a really tough question. I wish there was someone on with me to chat through that one because that's a good one. Niept on Twitch. So thanks, mate, for tuning in on Twitch. And thanks for the question. Do I hold Ryan, already have Stuart, Whitfield, Shee, Sinker, and Martin, or trade him to who? Or do I trade Butters? I would trade Butters this week ahead of Luke Ryan just because of the tag. That's as simple as that. And Ryan could still put up a good score. There is a chance both of them probably score very similar, to be honest, as well. But I'd go Butters out because I think you can get a better upgrade on that end. I think you can go Butters, who will go low this week and get in a big midfield that could go quite well. So I'd be doing that one. Bookie Booner can trade to Goulden next week. Butters going big fill at 2. It'll be Sarong trade last week all over again. Potentially. But yeah, if you can get Goulden next week, then Bookie, I'd go Dunkley Marshall this week. I think but I like Goulden. Luke Mac 38, thoughts on English to Marshall and Walsh to Stewart? Don't mind it. I like the English to Marshall trade, obviously with the better, tougher matchups for English. Walsh to Stewart, that's one of those trades. Obviously, it could work one of 2 ways. It could go well for you, and Walsh puts up another 80 or 90 in a tough matchup, or he could actually do a deal and go 130 and sort of bite you a little bit. So if I was trading Walsh out, I'd almost want to go to a mid, but I don't mind Stewart. So if you're keen on Stewart, I would tick those off. Josh Power, can I trade Clark and keep Young to get Green and Cherry? Get rid of Young and find a mid-range target, or go with X? I feel like I'd be happy to trade Clark instead of Young if that gets you Tom Green and Cherry. Just because Clark's been, besides that 3-week stretch where he went those 120s and 130s and 140s, he's just been a 90s guy. He's got a couple of low hundreds and whatever, but he's mostly been a 90s, whereas Young has been mostly 85 to 105. So been very similar. But if you get the better upgrade trading Clark, I'd be doing that. So I'd be going Clark out ahead of Young, and getting Green and Cherry. there. String Bean, mate, I haven't seen you for a while. Pals, my guy, can only get Danaher, Myers, Wood, Jackson. Who's the best for the run home? Myers or Wood for me. I wouldn't be looking at Jackson with Darcy back. If anything happened to Darcy, Jackson would be a good option. But it's probably Myers or Wood. Danaher key position play, I'm not sure about. I'll probably go Myers. I know he put up a bad one last week, but he's got a good run home. But then Wood's been so good. He's been averaging... Actually, no, I'd go Wood for the pod, and he's averaged over 90 for the year, taking out that injured 11 that he got in the year. So probably go Wood as a pod, and also the fact that he's been the highest averaging one out of all those guys. So probably Wood for me is a bit of a pod. Oh, geez, we've got so many more questions. Appreciate everyone putting this through. I'll go a couple more here, then we'll... and then I'll have to head off. Rad, hey, Bails, going Kenny to Moore and rookie down. Still need to trade Walsh and maybe Jordan Clark. Yep, I don't mind Kenny to Moore if that's the case, and do that. I'd be ticking that off. Team at Manus, Revel and Clark to Moore and Wood. Yep, I'll tick those off. And Taylor. Oh, no, one of Moore or Wood and Taylor. Okay, so you're going Revel down to Taylor and then going, I'm assuming... Is it Jai Clark or Jordan Clark? I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's Jai Clark to Moore Wood, or Philippine or Butters to Wood and Brayshaw. I'd be going the second option because Philippo's got to go. He's out for a few weeks. So I'll be going those two, and I'll be going getting Brayshaw and Mason Wood. I think I'll be doing that. I think Moore's great, and you want him at some point, but I feel like the last option is probably the best one there. It's Eliza. Okay, yeah, I probably should have thought about that. Apologies, Eliza. Sorry for getting the name wrong. Riley Curry, Young to Whitfield and Shellmaker to a red dot, or Evans and Humphreys to Newman or Wanganeen Miller on a red dot. I don't know if I'd be trading Evans because you can loop him tonight. So I'd probably be going the first option. Young's got a good matchup, but at the end of the day, I think he's only had one score over 120 this year, so I don't know if it's going to burn you per se, even though this week could be a week he goes 120 plus. But Whitfield, obviously, you want. So I'd tick that off. I'd keep Evans, personally. Jack M, trade Rivers or Young, and then Steele or Sarong in. I'll be going Rivers out over Young. Just, I don't trust Melbourne. He went back mid-game last week. And then Steele or Sarong in. I would be bringing in... I did have Steele ahead of Sarong in my target. So I'll follow that and say Steele. Just because I think Steele, every game, Malveristi, I think is a better long-term hold. I think Sarong's a better probably 2-3 week play, and then you want to trade him out before he plays, I think, Port and then Giants in the last two or something, or Giants and Port, or something like that. They played 2 hard games in the last 2. So Damon Snell, better VC option, Sheasel or Cherry. I think it's Cherry for me. I've got him at number 2 this week. So I'd be going Cherry with that July matchup. If Stanley was a late in tomorrow, I would then change to Sheasel. That would be the one thing that would change for me. Jack M, Butters, Rivers to Taranto and Steele, rank 2. If that's 500, time to have some fun. Yep, I'll tick it off. Yep, Butters and Rivers can go. I like Taranto as a bit of a pod, and Jack Steele as well. Obviously, Taranto come back for concussion, but hopefully it goes well regardless. And I reckon that'll probably do us. Rad, is Rivers a trade priority over Walsh or Clark? Yeah, Rad, I'd probably trade Rivers over both. Yep, I would trade him over those two. And Ben Hayes says, Buzz, can you answer my question, please? That's right. Yes, apologies, mate. I missed that one. Butters and English to Cherry and Brayshaw playing Manor on field, or Harrison to Tracy Stevens and English to Cherry. Basically, I don't know which is more a priority, trading Butters or English. I'd be going the first option. I'd be going Butters and English to Cherry and Brayshaw and playing Manor on field. I'd be doing that. I wouldn't trust Tracy or Stevens on field. So I'd be doing the first one. I'd be going Butters and English to Cherry and Brayshaw for me. That's what I'll be doing. And Craig Moyes, I'll go the final one here, said Heaney or Wood. I still think it's Heaney. I still think you need Heaney in your team. So he's the top 6 forward. So for me, I'd be getting him. Perfect. All right. That will wrap us up for tonight. But if you did have any more questions you'd like to send them through, send them to askmeonq, spelt qu.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. I can help with all your trade questions, draft-related questions, captain, vice-captains, or your team-dependent questions. We can send through your whole team, screenshot it, type it out, whatever you want. And then I'll be answering those tonight. So if you've got any questions, you can send them through there. Does help support the channel out as well. There is a small fee there, but it does give you more of an in-depth answer than I can give you in the comment section of the video or as an individual message. So if you'd like to help us out extra and get your question answered there with a personalized audio response to your email, then you can hit that up in the link of the description of either the podcast or the YouTube video. So in terms of my trades this week, I am going Joe Richards down to, I've got Caleb Smith in there at the moment. 203K, obviously defender rookie from Richmond. I feel like he's probably the one that is likely to play, but he's on the bench, so he could be the sub. Who knows? I just feel like there's no 200K rooks. He's the cheapest one that's playing, so I might go him. It could change to someone if they're not the sub. And then in my other trade, I'm going Jordan Dawson up to Harry Sheasel and putting Dacos into my midfield. Doing that, so I think Sheasel's a great option. And then my captain and vice captain at the moment, I've got Merritt vice captain, and my captain's on Goulden. I think I might keep it the same with Merritt just because that's what my gut has said for most of the week. I looked at the matchups and I like the Merritt one, but I'm not sure if I go Sheasel or anything like that. So I'm still undecided, but I think I'm going Merritt at the moment, but I could change. But I'll tweet everything out as I normally do. So, but yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in. Obviously, good luck to the 8 coaches in the Content Craz Cup finals this week as well. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, hope I can get a win over Jep. That'll be hopefully go through the prelim. But we'll see how we go. If not, I'll be playing. I believe I'll be playing the winner of DC and Luke, I think, from memory. But we'll see. We'll see how we go. But yeah, good luck to everyone there. But good luck everyone as well. That's in if the league finals starting this week, or if you're trying to chase rank, whatever goals you guys have got. Good luck this week in round 20. If you did enjoy the podcast, if you're listening back to on that, then make sure you leave us a 5-star rating if you would be so kind. That'd be very much appreciated and does help us out a lot as well. And if you're listening on YouTube or Twitter, thank you very much for tuning in live as well and sending through your questions and your players that you want to discuss and everything. And if you are on YouTube as well, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So as always, good luck this week. You can find me at Bails DT. You can follow Tim at Tim Guest AU. You can follow Jorlox at Jorlox2020, and you can follow the subs account for Jorlox as well at AFL Subs there. And yeah, and you can follow us at AFL Fantasy Fans on Twitter as well. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Good luck, and we'll catch you guys on Sunday for our round review. So thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. See ya. All right, beautiful. Thanks everyone that tuned in on YouTube as well. If you're watching now, smash the likes, get the likes on the YouTube vid going. Let's get 100 on there. That'd be fantastic. So don't think we've hit 100 on a pre-lockout chat before. So if you can help us hit that, that'd be fantastic. But I'll catch you guys tomorrow night on YouTube for the watch along. Thanks, guys.